It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And joining us now here with some latest breaking news is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, great to have you here. You know, big news today. You guys just passed in the House to give much more security to future presidential candidates and current ones. Explain.
We did, and you can thank our New York delegation for that. Mike Lawler led this bill. He had the foresight to present it in the Congress, and we got it through the House. We're sending it to the Senate. What this bill does is it will require the same level of protection for Donald J. Trump as is provided by a sitting president. And I think every American who looks at this and thinks about it objectively will understand there is a dire necessity to do that. I mean, he's had the second assassination attempt now. Ironically, my friends, as fate would have it, I was with him last Sunday at Mar-a-Lago right after the event took place, and I spent almost 3 hours with him, my wife and I, after that happened. He was not shaken, I'll tell you. You all know Donald Trump as well as I do. I mean, he is unshakable. And the thing is that there's no person and no leader in the history of America that's been so attacked as he has, so aggressively, and yet remains so strong and resilient. But he still needs protection, and it's inexcusable that it has not been provided as needed.
Mr. Speaker, I know President Trump for almost more than 45 years. The fact is, I think he is a target. Iran stands to lose probably hundreds of billions of dollars if President Trump becomes president again. The people who went on the wrong road in America on the rule of law, they can't afford to have him become president. I mean, he is definitely a target, and I said that to him.
Yes, he is a target, and it's because of those reasons. It's because our adversaries around the world fear him, and that's what you want in a president, by the way. We believe in, Ronald Reagan's old admonition of peace through strength. We need our allies to respect us and our enemies to fear us. They do not fear Joe Biden. They do not fear Kamala Harris, but they do fear Donald Trump because he's a strong leader, and that's what the country needs. So that's one of the reasons that he's in some danger, and also the fact that the Democrats have been completely unhinged in their rhetoric, and we've been watching this play out since he rode down that famous golden escalator in 2016. They began to attack him mercilessly, and they use this over-the-top language where they say all the time, they compare him to Hitler, they say he's a threat to democracy, quote-unquote, and it's just really, really dangerous stuff because it triggers people, in a literal sense. And we have called upon all the Democrats to turn their rhetoric down. Let's have a vigorous debate about policy. That's great. Let's talk about the records. Let's talk about the plans. Let's not talk about the person because this is a really volatile environment we're in, and it's as we've demonstrated now, we've got to be more responsible than that.
Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of Democratic friends, and I say to them that President Trump, maybe you don't like him, but he has terrorized the terrorists. They are scared of him instead of us being scared of them. And number two is that the fact is that he's the only one that has the courage to keep us safe.
But that's exactly right. And as he rightfully said during our convention a few weeks back, none of this happened under his watch. When he was in the White House, we didn't have Israel being invaded by Iran and its proxies, the terrorists. We didn't have Russia invading Ukraine. We didn't have China acting so provocatively and making threats to Taiwan and everybody around the world. None of this happened on his watch, and that is because he was a steady and strong hand. He's not predictable. Vladimir Putin said the quiet part out loud a couple of months back on a stage in Moscow, and they asked him when Biden was still in the race, who do you favor between Biden and Trump? He said Biden because he's predictable. You got to have strength right now. This is the most dangerous time that our nation has faced since World War II. And we are on the verge, as President Trump reminds rally attendees all the time, we're on the verge of World War III. And if we make a mistake in this election cycle, and heaven forbid, Kamala Harris were to become the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, it is the prospect of that is just frightening to think of. We got to reelect Donald J. Trump.
And Mr. Speaker, everybody, we're talking to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. I know that you have been very active, involved, first of all, of protecting our borders, trying to close it up, which has been great. And it's important to do, obviously. The other issue is election integrity. And I know the SAVE Act, which makes only U.S. citizens able to vote. You would think that that's a no-brainer. What's being done to make sure people have faith in our elections? I know it's something very important to you.
Well, it is. And, you guys have become great friends, and you've seen me in New York so many times over this election cycle because New York is the key to the majority, New York and California. So all of our incumbents there and our challengers for these races to flip blue seats to red are so important. Congressmen like D'Esposito and LaLota and Lawler and Molinaro and Brandon Williams. And then we've got Allison Esposito, who can flip New York 18 against Pat Ryan. And, of course, you've got Malliotakis and Elise Stefanik and Claudia Tenney. I mean, it's just a great group. But I've been traveling the country nonstop. So I've done campaign events in over 206 cities now across 39 states in the last 9 months, right? Something's happening out there. There's an energy in the base, and we believe we can win this. But as President Trump and I were talking as recently as last night, we're desperately and deeply concerned about election integrity. We've got to ensure that the election is fair. And that is a top concern of the American people around the country. The reason we passed the SAVE Act and the reason we have worked as recently as this week to get it signed into law and force it on the Senate is because the SAVE Act simply says that when the states are registering someone to vote for the first time, they have to provide proof of citizenship. It is against federal law for any non-U.S. citizen to vote on U.S. elections, but the law is not being adhered to because the states are not requesting identification. So the SAVE Act would force that to be done, require it to be done. And yet we cannot get Chuck Schumer to pass it in the Senate. It is an outrage. It's something every American, almost all Americans agree with. It's almost a 90% issue in public opinion polling, but they still won't do it. And so we got to keep fighting for election security at the national, state, and local level and make sure, as President Trump always says, it's too big to rig. We got to do that.
Well, we've won part of the war on AM radio. Yesterday, the subcommittee voted 45-2 on going ahead with AM radio, and thank you for all your help on that.
Well, we got to help. We got to keep Cats Roundtable on the air, and all these other really valuable resources that are provided, the voices and the on AM radio, the warnings about weather events and national emergencies. I mean, all that would go away if the radical left had their say. And the reason, of course, they're arrayed against AM radio is because they're afraid of the truth being out on the airwaves. They're afraid of voices of common sense and conservatism being out there. And so it's never been more important to do that. And we've got to protect it. The freedom of that at the congressional level. It literally comes down to an act of Congress now, so we're working on it.
Agree. And the other thing I've said to people is if AM radio goes away, because the reason we have Space Force is to protect our GPS satellites and our communication satellites. If our enemies shoot them down, then the American people have nothing. They don't have cell phones. They don't have anything.
Exactly, and don't think that Russia and China and our other adversaries don't know that as well. I mean, they have this in their playbook, and so we've got to have adequate protection against that. And AM radio is part of it's part of Americana. I mean, it's part of who we are as a people, and it'd be unimaginable not to have that great resource.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your support. Don't forget Cats and Cosby, too, not just Cats Roundtable. Two awesome shows that you love,
right.
Okay?
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for all your support. Thank you,
Mr. Speaker.
You got to read it. Thanks so much, John. We'll talk to you soon.
These days, it might seem hard to find a job with a future where people are valued and appreciated. But at Chick-fil-A Supply, we don't just offer jobs. We offer purpose-driven careers. As part of Chick-fil-A's distribution network, we ensure the ingredients that make the foods customers love are reliably delivered to Chick-fil-A restaurants. If you're interested in a role in transportation, warehouse, or front office, we're interested in you. To learn more, visit cfa-supply.com.